So, furthermore, leading up to the um, American Civil War was post compromise of 1850. There just seemed to be this sort of domino effect of events happening that led to the eventual election of Abraham Lincoln. And then once Lincoln was elected, you had various southern states leaving the Union. But there was a couple of pretty important events right before um, the election. So we're looking at the late 1850s. Um, and what it was a Supreme Court case and the attack on Harper's Ferry by John Brown and his family. So previous to this, as the we're talking, or hopefully you're attending earlier, um, you can kind of see this domino effect happening where earlier on, and I would say maybe 1840s or so, around the time Douglas publishes his narrative, you do get this kind of feeling that abolitionism, all the energy being poured into it in the North, is gaining some traction. But there seemed to be such all this bad news happening that this feeling that the government from the presidency, because the presidencies were people like Franklin Pierce and James Buchanan, Congress, where literally one senator, Charles Sumner, is almost beaten to death by a Southern senator um, because of slavery, not just for the heck of it, because of slavery. And then you had the Dred Scott case, where the Supreme Court basically rules in this case that essentially African Americans have zero rights in the United States. That's the constitutional understanding. Um, Reason why Dred Scott even went to went to court was the issue of with the technology now you're having people crisscrossing from the north to south more often, and so you know this guy wanted to try to sue for freedom, and the abolitionists really kind of, I think, are watching this very closely. And then to see the court base saying, like, look, this guy has no rights, and frankly no African American does, um, that gave more um, it gave more energy towards this belief that the South were like running the all the government. And the whipping the coming of new states because of the Mexican American War of 1848, that led to the Compromise 1850. This provoked a backlash among these very nativist parties. Nativism is basically this belief that if you're not like Anglo American and have roots in the Anglo American world, so like if you're Irish Catholic or Jewish, uh, Mexican American, then you're not really American. So it's very kind of anti non Anglo American political movement that begins in reaction to the Mexican American War. And this is the world of the 1850s, and frankly, this tearing apart of the different parties will lead into the election of Lincoln. Now, John Brown's attack on the Harper's Ferry raid is more of a symbolic move. It shows that this is not going to go away peacefully. The fact that he tried to start a slave rebellion that didn't really go anywhere, Um, that wasn't the point. The point was he's caught, put on trial, and dies as a martyr for the abolitionist cause. So it kind of drew a line in the sand, and Brown was one of those people early on saying like, this is not going to go away peacefully. You could preach like and talk like Frederick Douglass or Garrison, William Lloyd Garrison, and it's all about the profit. They're not going to listen to you. And so he thought it would be through violence that things would change. Well, this does lead to Lincoln's election. Lincoln is doesn't have much of a great career, honestly. He does have the humble beginnings that we saw with set up with Andrew Jackson. It's kind of a guy pulled himself up by his bootstraps type of beginnings, right? Very humble, uh, very at cross with his father. He's just somebody as a young man wanted to get an education, but was more a little soft, self-taught. Um, Confront, outdoors guy. But he was somebody who was fascinated with books and taught himself law. Um, Eventually became a congressman, and as we've seen, um, was one of the few congressmen to actually be against the Mexican American War. He thought it was a land grab, which it was. Um, and then he was done as a congressman. Um, Eventually, he would run for Senate. He's one of the heads of the Republican Party, or now becoming Republican Party. The Republican Party's formed because they think the Whig Party, with the Compromise 1850, has basically sold out. It has no national appeal anymore. And so slavery is a hot button issue for the Republicans, and they're going to run with that. They are not, Republicans in general are not just like really anti. Well, they're not all abolitionists. There's one thing like Lincoln to be against slavery, but Lincoln was not a radical abolitionist. In other words, that wasn't like the sole focus, and he was willing, as you've read enough in American history, he was willing to let slavery continue in some places in order to hold on to the Union. So, in other words, as once he's elected president, he's willing to make compromises along the lines of trying to preserve the Union. His big thing initially was he did not want to see slavery continue in the new territories, especially as you're moving west. That was something that he would not allow. And the South just wanted slavery, period. Everywhere, anywhere, anytime. Like it's crazy how he went from the founding fathers, which essentially was, well, this is institutional, it's bad, probably will die off, to the South now, basically digging into their tracks. We're immovable on the slavery issue. And so even Lincoln, when he wins, and he's winning because the appeal presidency is all over the place. The Democrats are split, um, and so he's going to win that election, and then immediately start to see Southern states leave and form the Confederacy. Now, Lincoln, if you're wondering like how this kind of nobody make it, well, he's a master. He's master at basically of selling himself, of doing publicity, and he ran for Senate in Illinois in '58, so just a few years before his election as president. He ran against Stephen Douglas, the guy who came up with the popular sovereignty idea with regards to slavery. And Douglas thought that he's going to beat this nobody, and Douglas is kind of the rising star in the Democratic Party. Short guy, pudgy, very opposite to Lincoln, who's long and lanky, and thin. But Lincoln thought, hey, why don't we um publish our debates? That'd be great. Kind of get some publicity. And it was. It definitely popularizes Lincoln. These are really famous debates, and there's a section of them in your textbook. And I want you to read it, and I think it's a little it's a little disconcerting for sometimes for students when they read Lincoln, and he said things like that the slaves are not on par with the white community, and people say like, wait a second, I thought Lincoln is a great emancipator. Why is he talking like that? Well, when it comes to people like Lincoln and even William Lloyd Garrison, part of the thing that they're trying to think about is how do we get the slaves once they are freed on the level of everyone else, since they have not had the opportunity of education, how we get them assimilated. And so you do see theories thrown around, not just among white Americans, but even black Americans, about like potentially leaving the US. Lincoln does entertain that idea at one point. Um, and then how you do the catch up game and if it can be done. Um, so think about Lincoln though, as you go through the years and look at his statements. Clearly, he is a politician, but he is getting closer to the abolitionist line. A lot of that has to do with someone like Frederick Douglass, who kind of pushed. They do correspond. They do meet. He does push him to be a little bit more progressive on this issue. And Lincoln is out of probably every president there's ever been, it's probably the president where you see the most growth and evolution in a man. I mean, at least that's in my estimation. From all the stuff I read on presidents, is somebody who grew as he took on the office, which is why he's recognized as the greatest president of the United States.